right, so welcome. It is again another Hot Topic Tuesday, and gang, we're already in May. A third of the year is gone. Hopefully, you're a third of the way toward your goal, whatever that may be. But here's what we know. The market has shifted again and is becoming very difficult for listings and for buyers to find homes. So those are the two things that really we want to talk about. So the TNT, tips and techniques for today's current issues, that's what we're going to look at. And don't be afraid to jump in and share any ideas that you may come up with. So as you can hear from my voice, quite potentially, I hope I can last for an hour or a half hour, excuse me, and not cough too much here. So here we go. Let me tell you some of the key things that we kind of brainstormed and came up with. Number one thing we've got to do, write this one down. Write this one down. And I'll define it. You ready? Work. Too many people are using the lack in the market as an excuse, and they're not putting in a full effort. They're not really working. And guys, when I talk about work, this has to become your best friend. You must pick up the telephone. You must. I can tell you, most of you, you need to be making 8 to 10 contacts every day, 4 to 5 days a week. It's just a must. As a matter of fact, the real focus is how many appointments do you need to go on every week to make the amount of money that you want to make, what you want to earn so that you can have the dreams that you've determined. But there's no getting around talking to people. I've been strongly encouraging to everyone that they use the goal projector, either in 21 Online or My CB Desk. Determine exactly what your business plan needs to be so that you know on a weekly basis how many interviews you should be going on. And when I speak of an interview, I'm talking a listing appointment with a seller or a buyer interview where we actually sit down with the buyer and interview them and let them know what we do to sell homes. Because you can't be spending time with buyers who may not have the patience to hang around working with you. And I'm going to give you some techniques that you should be taking a look at. So that's the first point. Work. Talk to people. Determine how many you should be talking to on a daily basis. A guide that we're coaching on is 10. But what's your number? Set the appointments and go on the number of appointments that you need to go on every week based upon your goal projector. Then let's talk about the buyer from this past perspective. The buyer. Have you disclosed your agency relationship in writing, and then got, or have you received, did you get a signed buyer representation contract? I always wait a little silence there because I want everybody to do a little self perspective there. Are you one who's waiting until you actually make an offer and then get it done? We should be working on getting buyer interviews where we can sit down, explain the process, and what we do in representing them. What's the benefit to them in having you represent them? With a question that I think, this is one that I think everybody should write down. Are you familiar with the techniques that I use to help buyers find their home at the lowest possible price? Matter of fact, if I asked you, what do you do to help people find new homes? and get it for them at the lowest possible price? Do you have an answer? Do you know what that is? Could you do a buyer interview and explain what you do to make that happen? So if not, you need to have that. But here's a thought. One of the biggest issues that we have is being able to find listings. For many of you, one of the biggest issues is you don't have a big reason or a good reason to call and talk to humans. Yet, how many of you have buyers that you're actually showing homes to, writing offers, and getting beat out? I've got one right now. We've written 5. We cannot win. So we're going to talk about what are the things that we can do to at least have a chance. Okay? Here's one of the things, though, that I want you to know you should be doing for your buyers. And this will get you listings if you do it. But how are we currently searching for properties for our buyers? We open up the MLS, we do a search, we save it as an auto email so that they get it, and then they tell us, hey, let's go look at this one. And because it's new on the market, everybody else is going out and looking at it. I had a friend that posted on Facebook just shortly ago. I saw this. This is in Grand Rapids, so it's not just here in Southeast Michigan. It's not mid-Michigan. It's the state. Okay? A house went on the market for $259,900. They wrote an offer for $300,000 and lost. And the sale price on the property was at $320,000. So I'm not real quick with math, but that's about $60,000 over the asking price. So we've got to put together offers, and best, guys, if in representing a buyer, we can find a home that's not even listed on the market to where we can represent the buyer only, and they'll have no competition. Now, if they have no competition, how much money might they save? Right? I mean, the scenario I was just talking about, that would have saved them $20,000. Matter of fact, it probably would have saved them a lot more because they'd offered $260 and hoped that nobody else found out about it until they had the keys in their hand. So I want you to think about it from that perspective, because I'm going to introduce you to something here shortly we should be searching for sale by owners. We should be searching withdrawn properties. We should be searching expireds. How about this? How about a mailing in the neighborhood that they want to buy in? Or even to this extent, this is going to send chills down some people's spine, but go knock on the doors in the neighborhood. Guys, first thing I gave you was work. We need to do this. And by the way, you shouldn't be doing all this work unless you've got a committed buyer, which means we've disclosed that we're their agent and that they've signed a buyer's representation agreement allowing us to represent them. And oh, by the way, here's where we get creative. I'm going to do a screen share here, guys. This is not the one-page agreement. This is actually the Amar agreement. It's a 3-page, a little bit more detail to it. But I want you to see here where I've checked off commission. See paragraph 21. Here's the reason. Here's what it states. Regarding commission as per paragraph 5, broker will accept the amount offered by the listing broker or seller, provided the amount is not less than 3%. Okay? So it says we're going to get at least 3%, but we don't get less than that. Now, let me scroll back up. So if we look at this, in the event buyer contracts purchases the desired property, buyer will pay brokerage firm a commission equal to 3%, but no less. This is a key. Makes it really clear. Buyer will receive a credit against any amount owed pursuant to paragraph 5 above for any commission paid to the brokerage firm by the seller or the seller's listing broker. So if they offer 3.5%, we get to keep it because the contract says we'll take whatever they give us, provided it's not less than 3%. We're now legally able to keep that additional amount of money. But what if it drops down to 2.5, down to 2, or my good friends up in our Lapeer office who battle with a broker up there where they might offer 1% or even 0. And I think you'll actually start to see some of those. What happens when a listing broker is not really even compensating or compensating less? The buyer's responsible to pay us 3%. So whatever we get, we credit that against it. So if it was 2.5%, they still need to pay us 1.5%. I would dare say that most of us are just eating that 0.5% right now, or 1%, because we're just taking. What I want to point out, guys, if you use this, great, because you're comfortable in what you do. You're confident that you earn your money. But I want you to check out the rest of it now. Or, in the event broker procures a for sale by owner, the commission will be 4%. A lot of people go, yes, we're making the buyer responsible to pay us 4% or higher if you choose, if we go out and find a for sale by owner. Okay? And then you just went in another direction where it was like, well, yeah, but FSBOs won't do that. Well, you don't know, you've never asked. But who's responsible to see that we get paid? It's the buyer. Okay? We haven't got time into how to handle all of this. Here's the other part to it. Or, in the event broker procures an unlisted property, expireds, withdrawns, I'm out door knocking, I sent out flyers, mailers, representing the buyer only, the commission will be 5%. And now let me go back. If you're going, wait a minute, why would anybody sign this? Because there's like my friend who tried to sell a $259,900 listing for $300,000. But because of the competition, they lost out. And they were willing to pay $39,000 more. How much is it worth for them to have you working that hard, representing only them? What's it worth when they don't have competition? And of course, it still builds in our broker compliance fee of $295. So it's another tool that will also encourage you to work even harder for the buyer. And if you're going to charge that, guys, you're saving them money. We're leaving 2% out of a real estate transaction if it's a FSBO. We're leaving 1 out if we find it because it was unlisted, not in the MLS. So there's one tool I wanted you to see. Now, what else can we do? when we're formulating an offer, what do we do to be able to make our offer stand out above some of the others? Well, one, have the lender, if financing is involved, have the lender talk with the listing broker, listing agent. Very, very important. That could be what nudges yours in front of somebody else. Matter of fact, one just popped into my head. Get large earnest money deposits. I always say the minimum is 1%, but 3% would be really great and stand out over and above most of the other offers. Here's one. You should talk to the listing agent. Find out what you can regarding any other offers. You'd be surprised at how much people will spill. And by the way, there's nothing says that they can't tell you that here's what I've already got. We always talk fair and ethical is the real issue, but who knows what they'll tell you. Ask. So talk with the listing agent. Pay seller closing costs. Pay the seller's closing costs, which could be paid all fees, including their brokerage, marketing fee, all 6% of it. It'll reduce what they have to overall pay, and it may cause you to win. Obviously, your buyer's got to have money if they're going to use that one. We've all heard of the love letters. We know that NAR's coming out and going, you shouldn't do this because it may create race issues, or that they'll select one offer over another because of it was a protected class. That was what caused them to do it. To date, Chris Hendricks is still okay with us doing love letters. But guys, make sure you keep it away from where anything could be done to where it would be discrimination against one of the protected classes. All right. But they do work. They do work. How about the aspect of guaranteeing the appraisal, guaranteeing the purchase price? It's another thing that's in there. No inspection. Few in here that are going, oh, don't do it. Listen, don't do it. I can suggest to a seller or to a buyer, look, there's a lot of things that we can do to be able to make your offer stand out over and above, such as not doing an inspection. I do not recommend that. Make sure that follows, because we don't recommend that they go in and buy a house without inspection. As a matter of fact, we should almost create that clause. Excuse me. If anybody says, I'll make the offer without inspection, I would get something else signed that they were doing this against the realtor / broker guidance and direction. I want it signed. Cover ourselves. Okay? So that would be one. And then, of course, there's the escalation clause. Yes, we're back in the mode of having to use escalation clauses. So let me go back to my screen share here again. So guys, here's what we know. This, just because I forgot to mention it, this document is in the packages for both blue and gold. It is the MAR exclusive buyer agency contract designated JJ1. I think it's the way it's named, just so you know it. It is in the buyer package. Escalation clauses. Now, most of us work with either transaction desk, where you can have clauses, or in Remind Docs Plus, and the clauses are there. So as to my knowledge, all offices have access to these clauses And I'm not here today to go, how do I do this? Just that they're there. So there's two of them. This first one, it states if prior to the seller's ratification of contract, seller receives one or more additional written bona fide offers, which shall be from a party who is unrelated, unfamiliar, and unaffiliated to the seller and acting independently and in their self-interest, with terms acceptable to the seller. By the way, my point in using this, you can't write your own. I put this together from legal counsel and a few other little things in there that I just wanted to make sure that we had take care of us. You need to use this clause if you're going to put an escalation clause. And just the first part of this has defined why. Because you see, I could have my sister make an offer that could have been just enough to be able to get you up to your cap. And guess what? You'd have to go with it. This says, no, that doesn't count. Okay? And let's see, and from which seller would receive an equal or higher, keyword, net. Because see, if we had somebody who needed 3% in concessions, we don't want to go to the price that they offered based upon them having to pay concessions. Then the net reflected in this offer, this contract sales price shall automatically increase by, and you're going to have to put something in there that's going to make it worthwhile for the seller to actually have the risk of making a counter to your offer. And we got to understand it's a counter because they're going to change something on what you offered. Therefore, they've rejected your offer and are making a counter offer back to you. So there is risk. And that would be above any other offers, net to seller, not to exceed a maximum sale price of. Otherwise, we won't go any higher than this. We'll do those incrementals, but no higher. It's going to cap out. This is the highest we will go. Financing appraisal language from the above referenced contract will remain in full force. Otherwise, there's no appraisal guarantee. Purchase agreement remain contingent upon subject property appraising for a minimum of the sales price. So we're even taking it a step farther to say it must appraise. And of course, then we get into all of the other stuff. And oh, by the way, little disclosure, purchase seller agree to hold agents and their respective brokers harmless with regards to sales price negotiation. Otherwise, we guide you, we helped you put this together, but you chose to go where you went with these prices. Okay? So that's the first one. The other one that we've got actually uses an appraisal guarantee. So the same thing, if prior to the seller's ratification, this receives one or more identified, sale price shall automatically increase by no higher than, bona fide may not be contingent upon the buyer selling the other house, escalation automatic, lender's appraisal is less than, and this is where it's getting in. So it wasn't just, we'll guarantee the purchase price. This still gives them a little bit of comfort. If the lender's appraisal is less than the agreed sales price, the purchaser agrees to proceed to settlement and pay up to whatever $1,000 difference from the amount of the lender's appraisal. So they still have an out. They're basically saying, you know what? We'll guarantee up to X amount of the shortfall of the appraisal. Make sure you're working with a lender who actually understands these. If you do, it's going to make a huge, huge difference. So gang, that's what I've got. Well, What do we have? We've got a few minutes here. Who's got any additional thoughts or ideas that you might share that'll help us deal with these issues that we're in right now with this market? Jamie, jump in.
I just want to say with the inspection, you can write a clause in there that the inspection's for information purposes only.
What's that do for us?
Well, if anything major comes up, you can still have that protection of the inspection and back out of the deal if it's like, I don't know, a bad foundation or whatever. But it also makes it more attractive of an offer to the sellers as well, because even though they're still doing an inspection, it's for informational purposes only.
So guys, here's part of Jamie. I love the idea. I've seen it. I'm going to put a yellow flag up on it. Yellow flag. Yellow flag because of this. There's what you believe that you can do, and then there's what we can do, or what was interpreted you could do, which meant interpreted from what works in my mind. And oh, by the way, what happens if we get into a lawsuit and you have to go in front of a judge? How are we writing it? So Jamie's got a great idea here, but be cautious as you write it up to simply say, this is for informational purposes only. Now, I represent the seller. Great. Don't care what you find, you're still buying the house. That's my interpretation representing the seller, right? So this is where we have to be careful and make sure that we add to it, what if?
Right. You put a certain price point in damages on there. Does that make sense?
That if any, yeah. So this is again, so Jamie's aware of what she needs to do. What I would tell you guys at this point, if you're going to use this idea, and it's a valid one, because what we're saying is we're not anticipating finding anything that would be out of the ordinary, that would be a high price or a high cost repair. So put a number that would allow you to still walk should you find something that would be a major repair item. And that's a key. So anytime we write anything, we've got to make sure that we answer the what if. What if this happens? So I do like that one. I've seen it before and I just went, oh, why would you write it this way? Because I really don't know what they mean. So it's got to be addressed in full. And by the way, that's still better because again, we know our house. Is there anything that they're going to find that's major? And I might even say that, okay, but define major. How people can use all kinds of things to be able to find and twist. So Miss Laura, what do you got for us?
So what I have is a question about taking an inspector with you to look at houses at a reduced rate, which is a reduced inspection, so that maybe you might consider making a non-inspection offer. So I've never been a fan of no inspection because of the liability. Someone asked me about this the other day. So it sounded like whoever the inspector was, it was going to be $75 a house, and they were paying them to go look at 4 houses with them because they've lost out on 4 or 5. What are your thoughts on that, Darwin?
You know, what popped into my head, this stuff is fun. What popped in my head would be this. If I didn't want to pay somebody to come to every home that we look at, I would think of it with another option also. And that is, one, many of the times that we have multiple offer situation, they'll give a highest and best buy. Now we're still at risk. But as an example, the one that I wrote on Friday, Saturday, they did a highest and best, and it wasn't until Monday that they even looked at it. So potentially you could get an inspector back out there within that time period. Here's another one. Somebody could go back in and check all the majors, do the search of the things that you would search. I'm one that I've had so much knowledge and background in regards to construction, home inspections, so on. I'd be fairly comfortable in doing my own. But what's the circumstance? Who do they have? What do they want to put? I think even to the point what we've got, Renee threw it out here, a 1-day inspection. Now that's better than a 7-day inspection. Of course, well, here's the problem you got with that. Now, how long does it take to be able to get the results of a water test back too? So you really have to take a look at all the different circumstances, but I love all of those ideas because what we're trying to do is formulate and put together the best offer possible.
Yeah, I've had a buyer, they wrote an offer with an inspection in like 2 days and that they'd be willing to lose their EMD if they didn't take the house because of that. And they had the means to do that. And that worked and the buyer still got the inspection. So
That is, I gotta tell you, it's another one. Make the EMD non-refundable. Now, buyer at risk? Yep. But I can tell you, East Coast somewhere, there's a area where they practice that your earnest money deposit, it's no deposit. It's the seller's money. It goes directly to. So it is, again, it's an option. We've simply got to give people choices to be able to make their offer stand out over and above anybody else's. We got a question here.
Within an hour from Rochester that is not affected by this?
This is the state of Michigan.
So,
You could count on it. I think wherever we're at, and it's due to the number of buyers that are out there. It is due to the low inventory. And all we got to do is see that when we bring something on, they're going out right off the bat. So yeah, the scenario I told you about, that was in Grand Rapids.
that a lot of people, like when I first moved to Rochester Hills, I said I want to live in Rochester Hills. And at the time, I didn't find any homes. And my realtor took me out to Beverly Hills, which was very far from here. It was not in, I thought, I wasn't even thinking, and she was like, no, you need to do the research, more educating that people may not be able to move into Rochester Hills. I actually did, we did put the offer on the house in Beverly Hills. We changed our mind at the last minute, but what I'm saying is maybe educating the buyers that there are options out there. It just may not be at this time.
Right.
In Rochester or Bloomfield.
So guys, I don't know if you could hear this, but it really is a great point from a personal experience. And that is, sometimes you're going to have to expand the scope of your search. They may be looking for this area, and you've got to get them to expand that so that they have more opportunities. They may find something because we're looking at a greater area than what it would be if we were just in this one. And yet, yeah, look, if I can use the buyer's situation to go out and knock on doors in a particular neighborhood, worst thing that happens is they say, no, I don't want it, but you've got a listing opportunity. Or we come back to the office and we go, hey, everybody, I've got one that they'll sell if we can bring them a buyer. And that's one of the things that someone mentioned in the chat room here, bring buyer needs to the office meetings, cover those. You're coming soon, Makiko's got one of those that she's going to have. get the hype and the interest into it in advance when you're actually on the listing side of that. So lovely one day, it's great. Oh, yeah. It's not just the state, but it's the country overall. And that's true. Very much true. Matter of fact, I just came back from Bermuda, which probably is, well, that's where I got this at. Sorry. They're experiencing it in Bermuda. I never saw a single for sale sign. So it is definitely everywhere. So anyway, guys, with that, I went 6 minutes over, my apologies. But we'll call that another great wrap to another Hot Topic Tuesday. Remember next week, this is national speaker John Reyes, who's going to be with us and talking about what we need to do to stay relevant in a digital market. So I've seen John out there at the conventions. Know also that the link will not be active for next week. You're going to need to register directly with John. So I'll be sending out the promotion for that. Look for the link to register, and you'll get the link through Eventbrite. So you're going to register through Eventbrite. And we need to do it this way so that John can do the things that he does on his end from out in California. So although it's going to be noon for us, it's going to be 9 a.m. for John. So guys, I appreciate you. Thank you. And let's go out and talk to a lot of people. Pick up the phone. It makes us money. Have a great one.